Hey guys, welcome back to Infinite Sky. On Monday 30 June 2025, a Japanese aircraft Spring Airlines flight took off from Shanghai airport in China, heading to Tokyo, Japan. This was a Boeing 737-800 model plane. After takeoff, everything went well in the plane. Slowly the plane reached at an altitude of 37,000 feet. However, all the passengers in the plane were unaware of the danger that was about to unfold after this. It was a danger in which the passengers would not be able to breathe and all could die due to a catastrophic loss of cabin pressure. The plane was climbing to 39,000 feet when cabin pressure suddenly dropped. At that time, the altitude of the plane was 38,600 feet. Was this dangerous for the passengers due to the low air pressure of the cabin? Well, the answer is yes. To understand the rest of the story, let's look at air pressure. As you ascend from the ground, humans can breathe comfortably up to around 10,000 feet. At altitude of 10,000 to 15,000 feet, breathing becomes difficult. Above 15,000 feet, for example, at 20,000 to 30,000 feet, the air pressure is so low that breathing is impossible for human beings. That's why commercial airplanes have bleed air systems. Its job is to suck air from the engine, filters a small portion, and delivers it to the aircraft cabin so that the passengers can breathe comfortably even at low air pressure. The cabin and cockpit maintain the same air pressure as at ground level, whereas the air pressure outside is very low. Apart from this, passengers exhale carbon dioxide, which exits the plane through a small hole in the plane, which we know as outflow valve. However, sometimes the plane's engine fails or the cabin's bleed air supply is interrupted. The bleed air supply is not able to reach the cabin. This would make it impossible for passengers to breathe. In such a case, there's an emergency oxygen mask for every passenger in the plane, including crews and pilots. If the cabin loses air pressure, oxygen masks will automatically drop down. These masks provide enough oxygen for passengers to breathe for approximately 15 to 20 minutes. The oxygen supply is only for a short time. You might be wondering, flights last for hours. 15 to 20 minutes of emergency oxygen wouldn't be enough. So I think this amount of oxygen is sufficient to save the passengers. But to understand how, let's return to our story. The plane was about to reach an altitude of 39,000 feet when the air pressure in the cabin dropped. The pilot followed the rules. They knew that the cabin's air pressure had dropped, meaning passengers would struggle to breathe. The emergency oxygen mask only provide about 15 to 20 minutes of air. It means the pilot had to descend the plane to approximately 10,000 feet within 15 minutes so that the passengers could breathe even without an oxygen mask. Because at this altitude, the air pressure is the same as of the ground, the pilots followed the same procedure. They descended the plane to an altitude of 10,500 feet within 10 minutes so that the plane could reach a safe altitude before the emergency oxygen ran out. Both pilots knew what they were doing. However, these 10 minutes caused considerable panic among the passengers. The experience felt like a near-death plunge. It felt like they were going down very fast. Many passengers even sent their last goodnight messages to their families because they were sure they are going to die. A passenger gave their bank PIN to withdraw money from his account. Maybe withdrawing money from a Chinese bank after someone's death is difficult. In this panic situation, at least cabin crew should have been sensible. They should have understood what was going on. But they were also screaming out of fear, as if they were also going to die in a few minutes. But in reality, friends, there was nothing like that. It is a descent to a lower altitude within 10 to 15 minutes, where passengers can breathe without oxygen masks. But maybe the cabin crew did not understand the situation. I'm not saying fear is wrong, but as pilots, both did their jobs well. However, as cabin crew, they should have understood the situation and should have given courage to the passengers. What was bound to happen has happened. However, the plane was diverted to Osaka airport. One passenger told, "I heard a muffled boom and the oxygen mask fell off in a few seconds." The stewardess cried and shouted to put on the oxygen mask, saying the plane had a malfunction. A hole may have been formed either internally or externally. For example, there's a bulkhead behind the plane which maintains the pressure inside the plane. It is possible that a hole might have developed in it due to some reason. We don't currently know the location of the problem. However, aircraft decompression isn't usually a significant hazard. EDTO, that is Extended Diversion Time Operation, is a rule. According to this rule, if your flight path involves a descent of maximum altitude to 10,000 feet within 10 to 15 minutes and there's an airport at least every hour along that route, so the plane is allowed to take off with 20 to 25 minutes of oxygen. But suppose if a plane is flying over the Himalayas, it would be impossible for it to descend to 10,000 feet. In an emergency, it would be impossible for it to descend to 10,000 feet in an emergency because the mountains are higher than that. In such a situation, planes aren't permitted to fly over the Himalayas unless they have emergency oxygen supplies sufficient for several hours, not just minutes, so that if an airport is far away, so one can reach there and the passengers also do not run out of oxygen. Overall, there are a lot of safety rules in aviation. Although passengers on this flight experienced a panic, the actual problem wasn't as serious as social media portrayed. I hope you understand the full story. That's all for this short video. Please like if you enjoyed it. If you don't like it, hit the dislike button. Either way, subscribe to this channel. There's a lot more to learn. See you in the next video. Keep watching and keep learning.